Right, we're good to go. We're good to go. Thank you. Finance meeting is called to order. I don't think we have any public comments.
We do.
We do.
Steve Manley and Beth Hollis.
Steve, you're lucky. I like you.
I feel lucky that you like me, Chris. That's good.
We are always glad to hear from you, Steve. What do you have for the folks?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Manley. I am here tonight with Beth Pallas. Hi, Beth. I am the executive director of IPEI, and we wanted to share that we were here to hear more about the BOCES process and its impact on our revenue, the district's revenue for the coming year, so much as we are aware and as we can know at this time. IPEI, under my leadership and in partnership with Beth, Discovery Trail and its program, Kids Discover the Trail, have worked really closely with the district's finance and accounting staff, all of Amanda's team over the last several years to move as many of our dollars through the return aid process for the benefit of our students on KDT related trips, Kids Discover the Trail, as well as whenever possible, IPEI's funding for small and mid-size and larger grants. Fine Arts Booster Group, we also try to move through BOCES aid return posters whenever possible. This is a challenge. It's probably one of the most complicated things I've learned to do. If I've learned to do it well, I won't say that. That I've learned that can be done in this role. And I appreciate so much Amanda's work and her staff's work with us hand in hand to move as many dollars as we can through this process for the benefit of our schools. I deeply appreciate the way Dr. Brown has maintained the flow of BOCES funding to the schools as a support for their work. And I just wanted to be here, listen, and share that Beth and I, especially Beth, has been working really hard the past year and a half as ICSD has changed its BOCES service provider, if you will, with whom they work. And then sometimes that has changed what is available for us to run funding through. So we're here to listen and to learn what we can, as we always do, and to share that we really appreciate the BOCES state aid process. It makes our donors' dollars go even further for your students and your teachers.
Thanks for having us.
Anyone else?
Sorry, no.
All right. Committee responses. I'll just speak really quickly. Thank you, Steve, for bringing that up. And for the folks who don't know, what Steve's alluding to is pushing monies through BOCES, which is state aidable. We get money back the next following year based on a formulation that they have, which actually makes our money go further and allows us to reach more students and do more work, which is outstanding, you know, and Amanda really championed that when she came to the school district, and it's really made a huge difference in how effective we are with our budgetary dollars. And, you know, a lot of communities don't have IPEI doing the work they do. So to have them added on to that is extremely impactful. Am I doing this justice, Steve? I see you shaking your head, yes.
A lot of communities also don't have the amazing support of our resources like the Discovery Trail. I'm going to pat that virtually on the back here through the screen.
So thanks to both of you.
Yeah, do you want me to add a little bit?
Please.
So I want to first of all thank Lily and Sydney and Terry and all of the folks, and Angela and Connie. There's been so many people that have been working on this. And I think I just need to say to Beth and Steve, it is an absolute pleasure to work with you. And I so admire sort of the trust that we had, that we built, right? That we like sort of had to be able to talk very freely and kind of take Kids Discover the Trail through the pandemic right? Which was definitely rocky for a lot of entities. It was rocky for our own BOCES, which was always the traditional BOCES that we would run our programs through. And Steve built that work with Beth, right, to kind of leverage those dollars to be able to get aided and bring that aid back, and we track it and we put it back into each of the buildings. And TST BOCES was stewarding that process, and they went through tons of different, staffing iterations and ideas around how to try to do that a little better. And then the pandemic hit, and it was really a time for them when they had to actually explore another BOCES to be able to support this process, to help all of us sort of manage that aid flow back to the districts. And so another BOCES, city BOCES, did a great job, picked that up, right, sort of allowed for us to be able to run those programs through them. And then post-pandemic, we're still, I think the two BOCES are trying to figure out the best way for districts to sort of manage this process. And we're kind of a little bit on a ride right now, I would say, right, Steve and Beth, and we're just we're like hanging on gently, and they're kind of like, they have some work to do, the two BOCES. And so we're getting like, maybe one day like, oh, we're gonna do it this way. And then maybe the next day we're like, oh, we're gonna do it this way. And Steve and Beth might get an email that's different from us. And we're like, well, that seems like we're all in it together. And we're not like, notice we're like, there's no tone, there's no like agita, as my grandma would say, right? It's like, we're figuring it out. And we want to make sure at the end of the day, KDT is tremendously valuable. And that is a non-negotiable. And whether it's city BOCES or TST BOCES or Ithaca City School District, or the three together, right? That process we want to be absolutely flawless because they deserve it. And also we want the teacher's experience on the user end to be really easy. And so I think working together, this sort of like a group of us stewarding that process to make sure that to support, the BOCES to iron this out, and to make sure at the end of the day, the kids get to do these amazing experiences and the teachers get to steward that process. Like, that's what we want. So, so Steve, we will be leveraging the aid, and we will make sure that we continue to, I don't know if it's influence the process or part of the process or collaborate on the process, and then also be really transparent on where we are with that. So, so that was just my follow-up to Steve's comments.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. So I'll approve the minutes from the December 20th meeting. Everybody good? All right. And then looking at the consideration of accounts, we've got the November treasurer's report, which, if I can't say enough, thank you for the brief synopsis on all of these. And I just want to point out, continue to take advantage of our higher interest rates with investments in several CDs. And we anticipate ending the year by exceeding our budget interest revenue by $1 million. So that's very cool. And the downfall, benefiting from the higher investments, that borrowing rates have also increased substantially. So it's coming to the end of a good ride, it looks like, but we're still doing very, very well with that.
Well, that's why we had Ben in here from Bristol to discuss DASNY, which we've never thought about before as a district. And so we're considering all our options to try to, right, to balance both.
Doing very well, in my opinion. It's been internally being up $1 million.
Yeah, let me just add, going forward, we probably want to be more. This is not.
Yeah,
okay. But it would be us to pay attention to how we're now going to go forward trying to manage that, right? Try and squirrel away as much capital as possible, right? So you get that good interest to offset what we have to pay on outstanding debt. So it's a juggling act, but Amanda's pretty good at it.
And we will talk about probably the February meeting as we start to budget formulation and things like that, and what we're going to do with that money. So he's right on point with that. All right. And also we have the resolution to certify the return of the tax warrant, because it said in the treasurer's report we collected about 95% of the taxes. So we'll have the tax collection information and the resolution coming up to move forward.
That's right, and I will not be at the board meeting on Tuesday night, it's rare, but I will not be there, I can absolutely write up, we can do a summary for you. Of just sort of the overview of sort of the key talking points for that.
I'll take you up on that. You deserve the time off. Hopefully you're going someplace warm.
We are going someplace.
Yes.
Mhm.
All right. So moving things right along, if that's okay with everybody, transportation budget presentation. I cannot talk today.
So Liz, I'm gonna intro you, if that's okay. So as you know, it's budget season. And I mean, it's always budget season, but it's like official budget season. That calendar turns, January 1. And Liz is our first director / budget developer that we have invited. We have that wonderful schedule that we're going to be following of all of our directors to be coming in and talking about their overview. Liz not only gets to talk about general fund and what goes out in Proposition 1 in our budget, but she also gets to talk about Proposition 2 and maybe even Proposition 3, depending on if we wanted to have a third. So, I mean, Liz will be talking to us a little bit about a couple of agenda items tonight. But we've been having a lot of fun analyzing, right? We have some relatively new staff that are like kind of still figuring things out, right? Obviously, it's tough to look at the trends with the pandemic that Liz has gone through. So we so appreciate you being here, Liz, and going through the program, the budget, and then the propositions as well.
Thank you. So maybe I have handout that everyone should have just for their general information all over your sheet, but then I made this slideshow as well. And we'll get to the budget and the proposition last. The best for last is at the end. But just a couple things that I don't know if the full board is aware of. I just wanted to bring up like some exciting things going on in transportation. So last year we were awarded a grant, the emergency connectivity funding, and it was a grant that we had applied for and we were awarded. And so that work has now been completed on the bus and it is working for all of our students. So that just happened about 2 weeks ago that it went live. And so we have wireless routers on 83 of our buses. And then we have extended wireless routers. So meaning the Wi-Fi extends outside of the bus quite a ways. And we thought that we could use that for our emergency planning if we were ever to reunify and use them as mobile offices. So that's pretty exciting for students, especially when sometimes the ride times are a little bit longer than we want for kids. They're able to access homework and things like that on their devices.
Quick question, will each bus have like its own individual passcode that they share with the kids?
It's the same for all the buses, and we talked to communications, like all the bus drivers know about it, but we worked with communications. Hopefully we'll be getting that out like district-wide very shortly.
So that's new news. So that's just recent.
That's like brand new, like
Yesterday.
yes, like right before break.
Wow.
And now everything's updated by bus, and so we can actually see right now GPS on our buses, although it's not integrated with our routing software. And a transponder upgrade, we're working on this right now, actually. So we're looking to go from our routing software that is by license by computer right now to a more web-based routing software. Is the same company. They have, once we upgrade to this Plus program, you're able to get live GPS. You're able to add turn-by-turn directions, attendance for drivers as the students board. There's also a parent-based app that the parent can actually put a geofence around where their kid's stop is. So you pick whether you want to be alerted 5 minutes out from the stop or just a couple blocks from the stop. And we think this will help a lot of the parents to be able to get their kids on and off the bus. One other good thing about this is they'll be able to log in and see their live student schedule. They don't have to call, they won't have to call their secretary, they can just log in and look at their live schedule. So we're hoping to be able to pilot this for summer school. Last year, we had budgeted $150,000 for this project to get it started. We're upgrading right now to the new software and we're hoping to have the tablets and the GPS on at least 30 of our buses. That's about how many we use for summer school. So we're hoping to pilot it for the summer. Hopefully that goes well and then we'll be ready to go for the full fleet in the fall.
So this is gonna take time.
Yes. I
This
think
will
so.
take some time.
Yeah, to roll out. Yeah.
You said we budgeted 150,000, what's the expected?
So 150,000 and you'll see at the end, it's gonna be, I asked for an additional 50 for next year just to complete the project.
Can I ask one additional question? Have we worked with the communications team? Because I know that a lot of people are like, why don't we have this share? Is there a way to like, let folks know that it's coming and we're working on it, we're excited about it, so they like,
Yeah, so we've had a couple of meetings with them. They brought back feedback. There's like a where's the bus app. And so this is very similar to that, although it's like integrated with our routing system already. So it's actually better. So we did talk to them about that. I think when we have a better idea, like when we know for sure it's gonna be ready for summer school, we definitely can work with them and make sure all the students and families know what's happening so we can try it out.
Yeah, our communication folks are planning a board presentation in the near future. And we're hoping to have this as part of an overall revamp of our website as well. The website redesign will include this and some other things that I'm trailing and plugging some things right now. Come to that board, it's gonna be fun. Yeah,
And what about total fleet of buses?
The,
The
So-
total number of buses we
we have
have,
88.
30 of those run during the summer.
So 83 will have Wi-Fi, so the other 5 kids are gonna be upset.
No, so the whole bus has Wi-Fi. It's just that the bus
Oh, God.
project out into the public.
We really want to try this all out in the summer to pilot it before we go, we scale up. Basically.
Cause you don't see that one kid who has the route that does Wi-Fi bus.
Well, then we don't, we want everyone to.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I think this will be important to roll out in the summer, because we'll be able to see what problems there
Yeah.
are, so that way we're not facing it with the whole. District in the fall.
With 80, I mean, we have a massive fleet, we have a larger fleet than TCAT, so starting really small makes sense.
No, absolutely.
So now, on what budget then here for, so the garage equipment, we were asking for a new shop truck. So we have 2 currently. The last time we purchased one was back in 2016, right when I first started. That is still in good condition, but our older one is getting to the point where it definitely needs replaced. So we're hoping to declare that as surplus if this is approved, and then auction that off and then purchase the new shop truck. Actually, it seems to be whenever there's a breakdown, it's always tends to piggyback multiple breakdowns, so it definitely need 2 of them.
Question, Liz, is there a replacement schedule for the trucks? Or
We
is it
only
just-
normally have two shop trucks, so we don't really have them
Let's
like a replacement plan, yeah, until they're starting to have more issues.
So Liz and Kyle, who's fleet manager at transportation, we work closely with the facilities department to create a replacement plan for those vehicles. So the answer to that, yes, for those vehicles,
Okay,
right, but not for the shop truck, which is more of like, that's kind of.
And this is a like specialized truck, so it's got like the tool boxes on the side, it's like made just for recovery buses, so it's a little different than like.
What's the general life on one?
I was, don't quote me, but I think it's like a 2012 or 2013 that we have. We're looking to replace, yeah.
Another question is on this screen. For $20,000, telling us you can get a vehicle suitable to plow that bus area.
So, and this is also just, normally we have our mechanics, they'll either use snow blowers or they have to walk behind, salt spreaders. So we're talking about just like in between the buses and in the bus island. So we do have a V-plow on one of our shop trucks actually, so we do, Heather's group does a great job, but we always seem to be like, kids are first, so we take care of our own facilities the best that we can, and this would help us out a lot to make sure our employees are safe.
Got it.
And then 50,000, that's the remainder of the transponder project, so that would help complete that upgrade we're talking about to the entire fleet.
And remember that Liz's budget, a lot of the items get transportation. Right, so when we budget in the 5510, right, that brings back aid to the district. So typically we'll get, like, just like building aid, right, we get over 50 cents back.
So here's one of our bus drivers and our staffing update. So we have 64 routes. They're all currently filled. So those 3 others are there as standbys, as sort of substitute. Our sub driver is a great guy. He comes in every single day. So really we have 4 drivers that covered absences every day. So we are definitely getting into a better place. And we had that a lot of COVID outages in the beginning of the school year, so that seemed to calm down a little bit. We currently have 9 trainees. I know today I recommended 2 the next board meeting, so hopefully get a couple more. We currently have 33 aides, including our regular aides and our sub aides, so we have plenty of aides that we put them on, even on our regular buses, to help with, behavior and help with the drivers safe and for the kids to have a good ride. So we're doing great aid wise. We currently have 5 mechanics. One of our mechanics retired last year. We originally opened the posting in the fall. We were so short that we said, if we hire a mechanic now, they're just going to drive every day anyway. So let's close it for now and then see how our staffing is doing. So we plan on reopening that in the spring or the summertime. And we have 3 office staff currently besides myself. And so I was recently invited to a committee meeting with the committee. And this was some data that I had gathered and brought up to them. So in 2016, there was 5 that would be like considered from like a marginalized background, 5 staff members out of 120. And we've done a pretty good job recruiting people up until this time. So now we're up to 37 out of 170. So that definitely brings its own challenges in the workplace, but we definitely see how that's benefiting us, with the kids and the relationships with the families and everything. So it's been a good change. Proposed increases. So I just did my budget analysis with Sydney last week, and these are just a few things that we took notes that we. So 50,000 for fuel, gasoline. This is what we're projecting for next year, although Sydney said the prices seem to be stabilizing, so hopefully we'll be okay, but just in case, we're going to increase that one.
And we'll see if we look over what the last 4 years, because gas prices were low 2021 into 2022, they went through the roof, and then so we'll see that level off. Right?
Yeah. That's what we're hoping.
Starting to see it now.
So the 30,000 for athletic trips, that's just because we're getting out of COVID and more activities.
More activities, we're just looking at what is projected with the charter cost now, and we want to make sure we're in a good place for next year. If we become more fully staffed, we could see that number actually decrease if we're taking more of the athletic trips, but just to be safe, we're adding that for now. And then with that upgraded transponder, that fee is actually raised, so I think it was maybe around like 9,000, and it's going to be increased to this for an annual fee of that software. And lastly, our bus proposal. So here we're going to talk about the electric buses. So we are looking at 2 full-size electric buses. They're 2022 models. These are on the lot now, ready to be delivered July 1st. And that per bus is. That is 401,442. So that's per bus for that. And then you see the price increase for the new 2022. That is about 452,000. So there's that much of a price increase just from last year to this year. So with the voucher program, the New York State Truck Voucher Incentive Program, which is at the bottom. If we're applying for 5 buses, that's the max, we cap out at 5 buses. So that's why we're proposing 5. And these right now are full prices, but you see there's a bullet at the bottom, there's a possibility of getting back $1 million in that voucher funding, so it's 200,000 per bus that we will be applying for. And as probably seen, the governor has just added like, I believe it's like 8 million to that funding, like pocket. But again, we're only eligible up to 5 buses, so. And then stage 1A, that is chargers for about 5 buses and including the infrastructure and the charger. So Amanda and Sydney were great this morning, looking to see if there's any flexibility, if we're able to put any of that funding and take it out of the general fund, so that way it's not through the capital reserve. We will update them on the next board meeting about that. And then stage 1B is what we're looking at for charging up to 9 buses. So we're adding that into the proposition now, so that way if we purchase electric buses in the future, we're ready for those to be delivered as well. And then right now we have 3 minivans and a Tahoe down at transportation. The vans are getting to be in pretty rough shape. I don't know the year off the top of my head, but we're looking to purchase 4 new SUVs, minivans, hoping that if we can get a larger size SUV, if we keep them for a year, we may be able to roll them into like the facilities or into like a new driver's ed car. So that's what we're looking at.
The whole idea of some of these, so I'll start from the bottom, actually, do you mind going back to that? Chris, this is also an agenda item, proposition 2, we should spend a lot of time on this. I'll start from the bottom up. Jill, to your point, the way that we probably can get at the replacement of vehicles of our whole fleet, right, is to be able to purchase things, utilize them for student use, to be able to get the transportation aid. They're on the road, you being used for students for a certain amount of time, you get that transportation aid back. The district owns those, then they can repurpose them after that time frame. You can actually then put them back into your fleet for another purpose. So it could be for what we were thinking. I know driver's ed is always looking to expand their program. They have 1 vehicle right now. Perhaps after we utilize this for the student transportation, that could go back into that fleet, support student programming, but also the maintainers, we can actually outfit those. If we are thoughtful about what we purchase, we could actually take those seats out, put in the rigging that's necessary, and then the maintainers could use those, right? The plumbing, HVAC, whatever specialist or Heather's role. They never mind getting a vehicle that's a year or 2 old. It's much better than their 10 or 12-year-old vehicles right now, right? That are aging out. So we've used this opportunity before, using the capital reserve. When we establish that capital reserve, it really is about vehicles. It is about small capital projects. That's then that next bullet from the bottom, that 94,250. That's Chris and Heather stayed. That was what Anna had presented to us at the facilities committee meeting last month around the infrastructure work that needs to be done, about the panels, those electric panels, so that when we plug the buses in, we actually have the right power to be able to support those buses. The one on top of that, that's stage 1A. Liz is right. Sydney and I are going to try to do some work to see if we can get maybe 1 or 2 portable chargers, because those would be great for those first 2 buses that arrive in July, before state ed has to weigh in and we get in the queue and all that, because that has to be a project that's approved. We can get those portable chargers plugged in pretty easily. And then those would be backup vehicles. Let's say there's a breakdown, something, we have those available to us. Also, if we decided maybe to hybridize our vehicle fleet, we have those then as portable chargers, maybe at another station for charging somewhere in the district. So there's that piece, as long as the electric outlets are appropriate. We think that 55,000, based on how we end the year, we might be able to get that now to support the July 1 turnaround. So we're including it because you want to put that in the cap reserve thinking, but by next meeting, we'll iron this out a little bit better. The 3 and the 2, we decided to separate. Dan's been talking a lot to you about the buses, right? And I want you to notice that we are putting the full pricing in there. For a couple of reasons, we talked a lot about this today and in other meetings. We do believe that it is important for the community to understand how, although there is a great value to these, there is a great purchase value as well. And although the reps are amazing and we have no reason not to believe that we wouldn't get these rebates back, things have happened. And so we can always be authorized more than what we spend. We can't exceed the authorization, but we can be authorized up to that amount. And so it is our recommendation that the proposition language actually represent the full value. And that if we do get these rebates back, that then is just money that's unspent that next year when we go and we give you the proposition language and continue to buy more buses for our fleet, that money would have been unspent there. So that is our thinking today. And so we wanted to let you know about that. I did want to say 5 of 88 buses is 5.6% of the fleet. So we're on our way. That's really actually exciting news. So those are just some of the pieces for the bus proposals. We're working with Kate Reed, obviously, on the language itself. Angela Jordan is also supporting us with all the numbers. She's been so great, and just sort of working with Liz on getting those, to make sure that all makes sense. We were thinking about a few capital project related things like paving Acuga Heights. There's $3 million in the capital reserve. And I am a little nervous about putting in something that is facilities related out of the capital reserve at this time, just because I know our urgency to try to get e-buses. And next year, depending on how we end the year, I want to make sure we have, this would give us about 1.4 million to then do another round of bus purchasing without doing a capital reserve, capital related project of paving. So we'll have to think about incorporating paving either into the general fund or maybe something else to think about it as maybe the monies, as Jill knows when we talk facilities and Karen, right? Like what might be left over in the cap project to try to think about ways that we can support paving. So that's our initial thinking with the Proposition 2 language. The reason why we said Proposition 3, we were thinking, should the minivans and the SUVs be separate, or do you want to just all be part of that?
My opinion is, but you leave it in there.
Okay, great. So it's all one thing.
Yeah.
Our only worry was like, if we can't promise, it doesn't say that we're buying electric or hybrid vehicles. We're not, I don't think we're quite there yet with the hybrid vehicles, because these would be used oftentimes for long distances, like going to Batavia, right? Taking students oftentimes in special placements, right? So that's typically when we use these smaller vehicles. So we talked a lot about that this morning. Am I capturing all of that?
Yeah, and I talked
Okay.
to the state contract guy to Flyers, and he said for like bigger SUVs that we would transport students, they're not quite there yet for electric, so definitely keep it in mind for like the future, but like this time we would definitely plan on purchasing this. I think it's regular.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, the question that always comes up when you talk about electric vehicles is the savings on gas, which, obviously the prices are exorbitant here. But what kind of savings would we look at on fuel? Like, have we broken that down at all? When you look at, it's only 5%, but anyway.
So I don't have that information in front of me. We did do that fleet, evaluation that had some of the like projected savings per bus and per fleet, but I don't have that in.
If you look at what's the cost on a regular gas powered bus?
Liz, how many buses do we have? 88, so we're spending like pretty much simple 550,000 for the year, divided by 88. $6,250 per bus approximately.
Times 5, so that's 30.
Yep, 31,250.
So I think that's fine.
What is that? What does that mean?
So the savings per year for the 5 buses is about 31,000.
Oh, that is substantial. It's pretty good. But I mean, the cost differential for electric buses versus gas does not nearly make up for that.
No.
Because it's, how much are regular buses?
Is what it
Uh,
means.
We just need
It
one,
looks like
147.
So what ours, 198 for propane, and I think they quoted me that the gas was about 9,000 less. So the way that we normally equip our buses, which may be a little bit more expensive than other districts, because we have the 3-point belts and everything on our buses. So yeah, it's about probably 180-ish for a gas powered, and then 198 for propane.
There is also a cost for the electricity that you need to use to power the bus. So I think as part of the study that we're really excited to see, I think there's some analysis of gasoline versus electricity per mile. They do some kind of comparative.
Sure, and then if you add solar panels in,
I
I guess do you have,
Get
right,
there, I really want to get there.
get our little solar farm going, yeah.
Has anyone moved farther enough along? Liz, to have any idea about longevity? I keep hearing about prospects of fire, right, documents, and then battery replacement costs when they eventually burn out.
No one's.
Okay, so I think it's been like maybe 3 years that Bay Shore has had electric buses. They were like the first ones in the state to get them downstate. And the ones that are upstate, they've only like just got buses. So I think Bethlehem is probably the first one that's been like upstate with them. So I can definitely reach out to this, that information.
No good deed, better believe. Never go sideways, we're gonna get it.
Just
Right. All right, folks,
We're good?
Liz, thank you so much.
Thanks, John. So 5.3, what we know so far about state aid and tax cap.
We unfortunately don't have any numbers at this time. We thought we were maybe getting them on the 15th, right?
Yeah, over the weekend.
And I was ready over the weekend to go. So, I will just do a very brief overview of what it is that we're waiting for, right? It's the governor's budget. Typically, right around this time, the governor's budget will give us the state budget, of which the education budget is a part of. And then that education budget then gets sort of analyzed, and each district gets state aid runs, right? And those state aid runs include everything from your foundation aid, which is our biggest portion. That is the aid that is calculated per formula. Right now, we are being told that Governor Hochul is going to continue to fully fund foundation aid. That's what we know today. But that often gets a little bargained and bartered, right? But so we're hopeful. Our foundation aid has gone up each year, a couple $100,000 if we're going to be fully funded on the formula. So that's a couple $100,000. We're hoping that would be an increase to that. Our BOCES aid, right, will be part of that run. That is a reimbursable aid. So what you spend, you get back. That's what Steve and Beth were speaking of. Their program is a part of that, right? But that's all the costs, everything that we run through BOCES minus special education services. Special education services is high cost and private excess cost aid. We'll be waiting for those numbers to see where we are. As a reminder, a lot of the inclusion efforts that we believe and stand behind and want to do, including co-teaching models, may not necessarily qualify us for high cost aid. It's typically the cost of a full-time aide to be a real person, the other spelling of aid, right? To be with a student. We're striving for independence. We're starting for co-teaching models. So that fluctuates, and we'll be able to speak a little bit more to that once we know where we are. Hardware, technology, software, library, textbook aid, we'll be waiting for those. Those we've set in our budget for folks to know what they can like purchase in their building budgets. But you know, those can always fluctuate if we get more. Transportation aid, right? Everything that Liz was talking about that leverages its own aid. Chris and I, we go back and forth, right? Of like, is this building aid? Is this transportation aid? When we asked that question at the school business officials meeting to the facilities planning department said, how will this get aided? All this work for e-buses and the infrastructure, is it facilities? Is it going to be building aid? Is it going to be transportation aid? And they said, we don't know. We're gonna figure that out. So depending on the work that we do, it could come out of transportation aid, it might come out of building aid, we have no idea. And then finally, the building aid itself. And so what we do with all of those aids, we analyze them, right? So we'll give you the initial dollar amounts. We think we know what the revenue will be into the district. But we definitely know that what we put in our ST3 are based on estimates, right? And so you want to make sure that you're not overestimating revenue. Never want to put in too much revenue or overestimate revenue, because then that gives you a false indicator of what you think you're bringing in. And then when you build your budget around your expenditures, if you overestimate revenue, you don't want to overspend your budget. So you want to make sure those align. The building aid is really important on another area of our revenue, which is our tax cap calculation, right? So our tax cap calculation, as a part of the formula, which you actually can exclude costs that are building aid related, right? And so we work with fiscal advisors. When we get this aid run, we'll actually send that to fiscal advisors. They look at the projects and when the timing is of when the aid will be cycling back to us, when our final cost reports are being filed, what early aid reports we filed already to release that aid to us, and they'll sort of look at that and make sure that that is finalized and that goes into our calculation for our tax cap. Right now, just looking at early estimates of our tax cap, we are approaching potentially a 3% increase in our tax cap from prior year to moving to the next year coming up. That's good news for us, actually. 2% is often the sort of false title for the tax cap calculation. That 2% is just one factor in the tax cap calculation. And I know, Aaron, in years past, we found good videos to educate, and that's still on the website. We'll move those forward around like why that 2% is there in the formula, where it is, or what really does that tax cap mean to us. We'll be waiting for some factors. We know that it's actually going to be set at 2% in terms of the calculation piece that looks at the tax-based growth. I'm sorry, not the growth factor, we're waiting for that, but the levy threshold. So there's that's 1%, that's one area, the calculation that's already set at 2%. That comes out of the Department of Labor. We're going to be waiting for our local tax-based growth factor. Usually that comes after all of the aid runs are set and the governor's budget is out. So those are some of the factors that are waiting. We'll know more for the February meeting, and hopefully I'll have a rather close to final tax cap calculation for you all to be looking at in the month of February. So right now, revenue will be higher. That is good news. We're working on all the expenditures coming in. All of the budget developers, those are budget directors. So department directors and principals have been submitting to Sydney all of their expenditure requests. So it's pretty much everything but staffing, although we have received some staffing increases already. Essentially like more clerical, I'll need more support to manage this. So as those roll out in February, we'll be giving you updates on that as well. So February is going to be a busy month with I would expect a little bit of a longer meeting, because we'll have budget developers that'll be coming to present. We'll try to have them on a timeline, but then we'll also be getting into a larger scale budgeting as well in terms of revenue and expenditure. So those will be I'm hoping that be reported and or maybe minutes taken, and then we can also start the FAQs right away. And I know that that's a really popular area of the budget website that people look to try to find out answers to their questions, right? Why, how, the reasons behind sort of those numbers. We try to give narrative there as well. So that's what I have. It's not a lot, but it's at least a little something to give an explanation. So next time I come, I can just sort of present it and we can talk through it.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
and it might be more for Eldred than anyone, because of your institutional knowledge. When you mentioned the co-teaching and how that's often not covered under sped services, under education budget, under the state. I'm wondering if this is something NYSBA's ever taken up, because that feels like it could be a cost-saving measure if they were to fund co-teaching, because that could mean less aides. So I wonder if that's, one, has ever been taken up, or two, if that is something maybe we look to take on when we reestablish a committee that can take that stuff on.
I do not think it's been brought up. But it really should be.
Yeah.
Especially since we have a governor now who seems to be on our side.
Do we know how many other school districts support co-teaching as much as we do?
That's a question for our educational leaders.
And we can look to see when Jen Bondeck is going to present, and I think those are really great questions. Maybe even during that time. I know Sydney, we could probably get some guidance schools on how that high cost threshold is set. That's sort of it's size, right?
By the state.
Yeah, it's by the state, and it's pretty
high.
It's very high, and so the reason why I mean, you can just give a little, and Sydney, please jump in, you're so much more knowledgeable than I am on this. It's co-teaching, right, is spread across multiple students, whereas an aide is singular, so when you're tracking a cost per particular student, right, that full cost of those services, when you're splitting up a teacher, right, it's harder to get to that high cost threshold. So that's really just a very simple, basic answer.
Oh, okay, you're looking at the cost.
Yeah. It's very high.
I wonder though if we
I
can.
have been doing this long enough, Aaron, to know that even that's not the end game, right?
So you don't get aid until we exceed spending $51,906 per student.
Per student.
Per student, so we stack those students, we have a state system where we report the costs of each of these students, and we won't get aid on them until we spend more than that 51,906. And then of the amount that exceeds that, we only get 30.3, so almost 40% of that is aided. So it's yeah.
But that's, this, again, this is what I keep talking, like, this is something that is bigger than
Yes.
ICSD. This is something that perhaps NYSBA could take on a state level. It could be a federal thing, like it should be happening anyway. Anyway. I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, it's fantastic, and we would absolutely. I think we have so many wonderful people speak about, right, our philosophy and building independence in young people and how. I think that's something that should be brought first.
I'll bring it up at our next inclusion
I was
meeting.
gonna add, I don't know if that's not, right? We constantly hear, doing this long enough to know this. Having a second teacher in the classroom is not enough unless they have training, unless they have time, right, unless they have all of those opportunities for synchronicity. And yeah, I mean, we've just been challenged, right, by our community to say, so what? It's not working because you don't give them enough XYZ. So for them to meld the job correctly. So I don't know if that's true. That's not my point. The point is, if we go after one, we should consider finding out what's happening with that ancillary funding to make it work.
So we'll go to review of policy 6700 purchasing.
That's right. There was only, as you know, we're working with the policy committee to revamp the 6,000 series. And every time that there's sort of a, how does the finance committee feel about this number, right, or this threshold? They just want us to come back and check with you. So essentially what we're doing in policy 6700, in the section where we discuss when competitive bidding is not required, right? Which is essentially below $20,000 or $35,000, depending on if it's a commodity or if it's a contracted service, right? in the current policy, there are very small thresholds where we require folks to get 2 quotes and then 3 quotes. And what we are proposing is that we are eliminating those smaller thresholds, and anything below 20,000, a minimum of 2 quotes is required, which really encourages a director, right? Anybody who's sort of looking for the procurement of these services to do their due diligence and make sure that the price that whoever they're working with is compared to another entity to ensure that the district is using the taxpayer dollars the best that they can. And then anything above that threshold, the 20 or 35, depending on what it is, that's when competitive bidding laws, you would have to go out for bids. You'd actually do an RFP process. You'd write that up, you'd advertise that those bids would come back. But it's sort of the prior to. We just wanted to make sure that that was acceptable to change that policy. And again, I think a lot of times when we're doing this work, it is because it's something that doesn't qualify as an emergency by state ed, but to us is impactful to the students and their learning, and we need to turn things around quickly. So, you know, it doesn't mean that we can't get 3, but 2 felt like the right zone for us to do and to eliminate those sort of, oh, well, it's, you know, 5,001, so we had to get 3 quotes, right? Like it's just, we just really wanted to eliminate that. So it was for ease, and this policy hadn't been updated, I think, since
2009.
yes, something like that. So those thresholds are a little dated, and this we feel better represents today's dollar. We just wanted to check with you to make sure that was okay.
I'm good with it. Good.
Yeah, just a couple of small things. That Sean, of course, would have picked up, you were here. The top of page 2. First sentence. Disabled. Make purchases from severely disabled persons, disabled just needs an S.
Okay.
And if memory serves me correctly, I thought we had written into this policy years ago that if we could find someone appropriately situated who represented a minority class, we would give them strong consideration. I see disabled throughout here. I don't see anything in reference to women and minority.
Great point.
And we should also take the word severely out. I mean, I know what we're getting at, and I think that's important, but at the same time that some folks with disabilities do not appreciate that terminology.
Great.
Yeah.
If I remember that correctly. It's been here.
You're right.
So you want more of the, there's language around women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, we definitely
I
can.
just did a Control F and I'm not seeing women.
Yep. We do talk about local, right? So there's a commentary about trying to purchase from local vendors as much as we can. But I can propose that change, no worry.
There's no minority women.
No, that's when they were open, we used Challenge extensively for the services they provide. But I just could have sworn we addressed this.
Well, great point.
Yeah, we have to build businesses. So you say that, but you know, Chris knows, you know,
Yeah.
the dearth of such opportunities, but at least from a policy perspective, we can take the first.
Absolutely. And we branch out into so many different things. We don't know what's out there until we offer that opportunity. There's plenty of businesses out there that are going to fall into the criteria, especially with lower bids, especially if they're just starting out to get business out. I'm not looking to take advantage of them, looking to give an opportunity.
Well, that's why the under 20s, we're gonna give people a chance to get their feet wet and show proof before they move up the ladder.
Great.
I will make those
Thank you
edits.
both.
I will alert policy. Through. Thanks.
Thank you all for taking the time to look that over,
Amanda, can I ask a follow-up question?
please.
When we're looking at procuring relatively small amounts of like the electrician for the e-bus stuff, I think that's gonna be less than that $35,000 threshold. So, yeah, right, it's a very small piece of that effort. Then we would get 2 quotes for that.
Yeah, so services that some of the folks that we use are on cooperatives, right, or state contract, depending, like I know Omnia, partnership covers some of our contractors that we use. So this would be for the folks that do not have an opportunity, like that we could purchase them through a cooperative.
Yeah.
Great.
Let's see. Well, it's like the very smallest piece of the 3-stage plan. But that
Any other updates or? Okay, and then I think Amanda set the table for the agenda setting to the next meeting with the budget formation and hearing from other directors.
That's great.
We will be in budget formation mode. Starting hot and heavy.
That is the way we're gonna be rolling.
Just did we decide on the next meeting? Because I think it falls over February break.
We did not.
And I will not, I'm out of town and
And
will be at an
what-
appointment during the meeting. I can't make it virtually either.
So yeah, I think Trisha alerted me that that February 16th, which is a Thursday, was the suggested date for both facilities and finance. So
Was that the
I,
joint meeting or was that the just?
so facilities would happen right at the 5 o'clock hour.
Okay.
And then it's the 6 o'clock hour, finance would occur. And I think I was told that it's February 16th, which is Thursday.
She's listening.
Thank you, Trisha. Thank you, Trisha. Because yes, Erin, I think we caught it when we were doing the budget calendar, the draft budget calendar, and we wanted to correct that, so. How does that feel for everybody? And then that would be facilities and athletics would be presenting. So you'll hear from Heather, she'll have a double meeting. And then Samantha will join us too. So
Sounds good. All right. Anything else? All right, folks, that's it. Look at that time. Oh, gosh, you're just throwing it off now and then.
I can't do this next meeting. I really can't.
It's gonna be like